everybody, and welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the show where we answer your questions about movies, TV shows, comic books, books, and much more. I'm your host, DJ Wooldridge. With me, as always, is Roxy Stryer. Hi, Roxy.
I actually, for the first time in a very long time, consider myself to be a book reader. A book reader light.
A light book reader.
I've been listening to audiobooks. I don't know if it counts.
That's a huge improvement from last time. I feel
Yeah.
like last time I was trying to get you into them.
I'm going to ask you all about it. We'll get there. I'm excited.
Wait, who's that other voice? It's Maude from Maude's Book Club. Who else are we going to talk about books with? Are you crazy?
Hi. You said books. I spoke straight away. That's what I do. Books are good.
We just mentioned books, and she appeared. She appeared. Maude, for the people that haven't been listening to the show, who are you?
Hello, I'm Maude. The name's Maude.
Yeah.
I am an Australian entertainment host living in LA, and I cover a lot of film, TV, and video games, and a lot of things that fall under geek culture. But I also run a book club called Maude's Book Club, which talks about science fiction and fantasy books usually. So we get to nerd out about those. And I'm encouraging people to, literally, let's read more books.
Love it.
Let's read more books.
I'm going to buy that mug.
I'm a walking advertisement or sitting advertisement right now.
Yeah.
Let's read more books.
Let's read more books. And Maude, I'm going to key on one specifically. We're going to talk about more about books. There's going to be links to Maude's book club in the description, so please check that out. But you obviously mentioned that you're from Australia. I just watched the movie Talk to Me, a new A24 horror film that I didn't know going in was set in Australia. Maude, have you seen it?
I don't watch horror.
Okay. That tells me there was a question that we're going to ask you from the Discord that I was like, I wonder if this is ironic, and you just informed me that it is an ironic question.
Cool.
So anyway, it's a really good horror movie from A24. So if you're into that sort of thing, recommend it. But it's set in Australia, and there's two characters driving on a road, and they run across roadkill. So my American brain thought deer, raccoon, and it is a kangaroo, and it was just one of those like, that's insane to me.
I've seen dead roos.
It's just
it's sad.
It feels like Australia's like God's petri dish, like just fucking around. What crazy things can we come up with?
I feel like Hawaii is God's petri dish right now. Everywhere seems to be the petri dish where it's just like they mess around and find out. Australia's hit it hard too, though.
No, but I'm just talking about fun creatures. Like I'm trying to keep it fun, Roxy. I'm talking about kangaroos.
Yeah, but platypi. You said dead kangaroos.
Well, because it was hit by a car.
No, I'm just saying, how fun are you keeping it, DJ?
Yeah, I'm just saying, but it's just funny that
kangaroo had a life.
Don't come at me.
Family.
But it's just funny that your roadkill rodents are giant 6-foot monsters that hop around. That's crazy to me.
For any Aussies that don't know this, if you do see roadkill, especially a marsupial, make sure you check its pouch because it may have like a little joey in it. That's happened before.
Wait, with your hands, Maude?
You have to poke. You have to poke and see if there's anything in the pouch because they could be carrying young, and then the young would die. But there's a video that went viral of I think it was a kangaroo, and there was a joey in the pouch.
Yeah.
But the woman saved it.
This is the dumbest question ever, but it's not like here. It's not like rabies situation. You can just go and poke around.
I think that is a good question, Roxy.
Well, the animal, the carcass is dead, so I don't think that's going to bite you.
Yeah, I will say
is how rabies is given. I think.
Yeah, but not necessarily. I was scratched by a stray cat recently, and so I was like, how big a deal could that be? And I looked up rabies, like, a very big deal, very big, scary deal.
I got stung by a bee,
and
I was like, oh my god, my butt is so sore. I got stung on the butt. And I was like,
and you got rabies from the bee.
You got bee rabies.
Well, I was just like kind of looking at how can I make this sting less? It's really hurting me. What's going on? And then there's like this thing going, hey, have you had a tetanus shot lately? Maybe get one. And you're from a bee?
Yeah. You know what I do when I've been bit? I don't know if it's the same thing as being stung, but do you have any of those pimple patches?
Does that work on it? Because it extracts it.
It does help. Yeah, it extracts. And if you get it on within a couple of hours, it sucks whatever venom.
The venom. Yeah. Wow, that's brilliant.
Thank you. I'm very smart.
You know what I did instead as an Australian? I went to a bar and I drank beer.
No, that's a better option,
It
obviously.
was a happy hour, and I was like, well,
Yeah, for sure.
says
Well,
happy.
in the movie, there was a debate about whether they should try and put the kangaroo out of its misery. And my thought was, you're in Australia, just wait 10 minutes and the biggest snake you've ever seen will come and eat it.
Okay, as an Australian, I find that offensive. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
I want
know
to go so bad. Oh, it seems like the coolest place on
Australia?
the planet. Yeah.
It is cool.
Yeah.
I feel like in life, like I've got like a +5 nature check because it's like I grew up with so many deadly and poisonous sort of animals. So that's a cool skill set to have. I just wish, like I wish that Americans, they're so scared of they'll kill you in Australia. I'm scared of a dude with a gun. If you want to talk about real fear, that's the fear I face in America every day. So
Yeah.
I'd take an animal any day.
I have tracks. I'm with that. I understand that. The last
Throwing
thing I'll mention
shade
on
at
this
the country now.
is I love watching when you watch like Australia entertainment set in Australia and then entertainment set in New Zealand, and just the vast difference of what bush means. When they say bush, you're like, well, that's a completely different environment in those two places.
Yeah, bushland in Australia. I mean, watch Wolf Creek. Bushland in New Zealand. Watch the Xena
for the wilder
Princess.
people. Yeah, exactly. Just very different. Anyway, fun Australia talk. But before we talk about the other things we're going to talk about today, of course, if you want to watch the show live, if you want to listen to it ad-free, if you want to check out Patreon exclusive shows like Roxy Mine's Q&A or the show I do with Sal called Spider-Versity, you can do that over at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. It should be, when this is coming out, next Wednesday. Sal and I are also doing an episode of Mutant Academy live on youtube.com/onlystupidanswers. So check that out. We're going to be talking about First Class. We had a little dip in the quality of our X movies. Now we're going back up.
Yeah.
And every week, you please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. We appreciate it. It's very helpful. Also, every week on Spotify. If you listen on Spotify, we ask a question every week. Last week's question was, do you think the U.S. has recovered aliens? And Xavier Thomas said, I think the question is, what's more scary, aliens having advanced war technology or us? And I think the answer to that is it depends on the aliens. If the aliens are like us, then the aliens, because they got here, they would be much more advanced.
I have a theory on that.
What's your theory, Maude?
Well, if the aliens are already over here, it means that they have advanced sort of resources and retcon. They're researching, right? They're researching all of the different worlds. And you'd hope that by learning all of this stuff that they are trying to generate peace more. That it's not as combative and they're not sort of like taking over. They're looking at all this destruction, and instead of being like, we want to take over this shithole, it's like, we want to make things a little bit better.
Yeah.
So the aliens are going to try and rescue us from ourselves.
That would be great. And
While
also,
I'm at it, AI, go robots, just in case.
just covering your bases in case the AI takes over. Yeah, it's if they are like us but have the technology to get here, we're fucked. That's the long we're fucked.
The closest that DJ and I have in the 10 years that we've been working with each other, the closest that we have gotten to a fight was last week talking about aliens. The aliens divided us.
What's the different stances?
What if you had to guess, Maude? I'm curious what your guess would be.
The nihilism of DJ with the hopefulness of Roxy.
It was more like, I believe UAPs exist and DJ does not.
Well, but again, and I think
They
you and I
do.
would agree on this, is there
They
are
do.
people see things that they don't know. We can agree
Nah.
that's an unknown UAP unknown. I just don't think the U.S.
How
is
deep
sitting
have you
on.
dived into it? Yeah, dude.
I don't think the
They have
U.S. is sitting.
declassified a bunch of information.
Where
That's why I said to him, I said, you got to keep digging, DJ.
They've declassified, and they did it around the pandemic. So it's like everyone's freaking out about, whether they're going to get COVID and die.
not gonna-
And then they're like, by the way, on the DL, we're just going to declassify
I'm not.
a bunch of information.
Oh my God, are
about
we going to get into
UAPs.
another
Sorry,
fight?
DJ. Sorry. We don't have
Christian was like, if you watch all 5 episodes of that UFO show, I'll have you on your UFO
UAP.
show. And it's like, yeah, but see, the show's anyway, there's obvious misinformation going on in the show, which is frustrating. Anyway, never mind. That's great. Awesome. This we're not going to get into it. I'm not going to get sucked in.
Okay.
We're going to go over the news. because in news, we have that the Marvel VFX artists have voted to unionize under Yahtzee. And of course, this is a huge deal because if you follow entertainment, like our show, you know that it's not been great for VFX artists pretty much ever, but especially in the Marvel era. Not great for them, not great working conditions. And so the hope would be and the goal would be that by unionizing under Yahtzee, that they will have better working conditions. Mark Patch, and this is from Variety, Mark Patch, who's the VFX organizer at Yahtzee, said in a press release, a supermajority of Marvel's more than 50 worker crew had signed authorization cards indicating they wish to be represented by the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. For almost half a century, workers in the visual effects industry have been denied the same protections and benefits their coworkers and crewmates have relied upon since the beginning of the Hollywood film industry. This is a historic first step for VFX workers coming together with a collective voice demanding respect for the work we do. And Yahtzee represents more than 168,000 technicians, artisans, and craftspersons working in movie and TV. And I do think this is amazing. This is really cool. Yahtzee covers a lot. Like when you talk to people in different, they're like, I'm also covered by Yahtzee. And it's like, it's a bum. I wish our labor in this country, we respected labor enough that like, the Yahtzee blanket wasn't so broad. I wish these different groups had more specific representation because the needs of like a production designer aren't necessarily the needs of a VFX artist. But this is a great first step. It's better representation. Some representation is better than none.
It's definitely true, DJ. I mean, we're seeing that in SAG for sure, right? With 160,000 members, it's like even SAG doesn't all have the same wants and needs. So I see when you are working completely different gigs, but it is definitely a good first step because I think a lot of people we've talked about on this show, DJ. It's come up many times. The VFX artists, they are, the words are hard today. You know, sometimes they are. The artists that are working their butts off, that are trying so hard to do the best job that they can, having no turnaround times is like unacceptable. The fact that you, for anybody who doesn't know about turnaround times, right, that means you can work all night long and have to be at work in 2 hours as opposed to the unions that represent both the WGA and SAG and IATSE, who have all placed in, and which is so important, mandatory turnaround time so that you are sleeping human, so that you're somebody that can actually get some rest. Same thing with pay for hours. Like they're just not getting paid for the amount of hours they're working. That should be really illegal. You shouldn't have to unionize in order to get paid for the amount of hours you work, but you do have to do that because otherwise you have no leverage. So the things that they're asking for, the things that they're fighting for are really truly basic needs. It's getting paid for the amount of hours they're working. It's not working so many hours that they're getting into these massive car accidents on their way home, which is a really common problem in their industry, and several other things that are like unlivable conditions for these artists.
I think most people forget the visual effects always happens at the end. So it's like once you've shot the whole movie, that's the end process, the finishing touches. And when they need more time, the deadline's already been set. So instead of extending a deadline to fit in what the VFX needs are, they then have to just make more hours. And so if there's any sort of changes or if the director wants to do something different, whatever it is, the deadline doesn't change, but the workload increases. And I have, you know, in my community, we've got VFX artists and like listening to the conditions that they're under where it's just like, I just have to pull doubles. And the same sort of thing. I don't get paid overtime. Or, you know, I'm doing like 70 hours a week when I'm supposed to be doing 30 and I'm not getting recuperated for that sort of time. I'm just expected to do the job. And so I understand why they would want to unionize, especially you guys heard what happened for the Into the Spider-Verse, the second movie, where they like made massive changes in the script. And so the animators had to like redo like the last part of the movie or something like that.
Redo whole scenes from scratch and stuff like that.
And they complained, and Amy Pascal, who's like the head of Sony and like who ran the studio for all of this, said, "Well, that's showbiz, baby."
And which is funny because that's not showbiz for her. That's not how her job works.
She's not pulling those hours.
And it's interesting too, like, and especially as VFX become like at a certain point, you're watching some Marvel movies and it's like above Kevin Feige's name should be the VFX studio. Like they're that responsible for what I'm seeing on the screen. They should be getting more credit for their involvement, and they've become more vital to this stuff. So go for it. Good. It'd be great. Hopefully that this leads to maybe VFX workers and animators getting specific unions that cover their specific needs. But you're right, Roxy, in that like in a perfect world, you wouldn't need this stuff. You would just get paid for the work you do. But that's not the world we live in, and they'll squeeze every drop out of us if we let them.
I remember when you and I were talking about this, DJ, specifically about the Spider-Verse debacle that Ma just mentioned, with Lord and Miller and people saying that they were asking for way too much. I remember, DJ, you and I obviously both agreed on there being a problem, but disagreed on where that problem was stemming from. And I think that you rightfully so were just like, this is ridiculous. They can't ask for these things. And I remember thinking or saying on the show, it's not Lord and Miller that I find fault with, although treat your employees well, obviously, but it's the whole system. So it's not like I'm pegging this on them, because they're asking for things that are reasonable, They're asking for things that are within their right at this time to ask for. Would I do that? No. But is that what's laid out contractually for them? Yes. And so at the time, I know that you and I both were like, something has to change. And clearly everybody else agreed. And I don't think it's just going to stop at the Marvel VFX artists. I think it's going to go they're going to see what happens here. And then everybody is going to want fair rules and regulations. So I think this is just the start of something big.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Maude?
We see the trickle-down effect already. So the writers are striking. Now the actors are striking. So what's going to happen? There's going to be more reality television. There's going to be more animation. And now they're saying reality TV people are getting so exploited if you're signing up to be a contestant on there. There's a lawsuit going on with Love is Blind about the exploitation, where they were on set for like 20 hours. They were fed so much liquor and not enough food, and they were making like $7.17 an hour for their time. And then the detrimental effects of emotional manipulation to get a good story, and then how if they were villainized, that's affected their livelihood afterwards. And so they got the raw end of the deal. And I think it's Bethany. I don't do Real Housewives very well, but I think she's one of them. She's basically saying that reality television is a complete sham in terms of manipulating and exploiting the average person who's on it. And then the animation side of things, it's exactly the same. When you push a lot of production, all right, we don't have actors, we don't have writers, we're going to do like these animated shows. The animators are in overtime. And now it's like, well, we don't have a good system in place for when our work influx triples. Like now we need help. And I've been hearing things like with voice actors, same sort of thing. AI is affecting voice actors, and they are using AI to edit compilations now. They're using AI to mimic the voices of the characters. And so with this trickle down effect, it's like we're seeing it's not just coming up from here, but any single time you try to correct course and be like, okay, we can't do that, so we'll do this, that's also a problem area. So
okay, so Maude, just to confirm, when it is AI versus aliens, you're team AI, but AI versus humans, we're still with the humans?
Well, I mean, the different AI, there's like AI, which is like, oh, if someone takes 20 minutes of footage on a podcast and then they recreate my voice and exploit it, I think that's terrible. But when Skynet happens,
she wants to be friends with Skynet, but not ChatGPT.
And there's an alien that's just broken down my door, and then it does a scan and it recognizes my voice, and like 280 times over the last 7 years, I said that AI are a friend. They will scam me and be like, she is an ally, and they won't kill me. I'm playing long game. Long game with that, but I also want my job.
Exactly. So, Roxy, when I was telling you about what we were talking about today, you hit me with some other entertainment news. What's going on? Because literally, you mentioned Lil Tay, and I don't know of Lil Tay. And literally, within finding an image of it, 2 articles popped up. One said that she was not dead, and one said that it was talking about her being dead. And so it's like, this is why Roxy's bringing it up.
So this is a horrifying situation. Maude, do you know anything about this?
A little bit, only because I remember reading it and being like, God, that was so sad. And her brother died as well. And so the parents are putting out this statement saying that they've both passed away. And then she surfaces like a couple of days later being like, I'm not dead, and she's kind of seen the world mourn her.
Yeah.
How messed up is that?
Is this a little dicky? My instinct is I'm hearing she's not dead, so I want to make jokes. Is it okay for me to make jokes?
So let me tell you what's happened, and
Okay.
then we can try to sort this out together.
All right.
So for anybody who doesn't know, like DJ, Lil Tay is credited as being a rapper, but she's not really a rapper. She was more of an internet viral sensation. She would come out in these like really souped out cars that were very expensive, and she was 9 years old, and her parents would have her make these videos for the internet that are like, I'm Lil Tay, this is my car, you can't afford to drive this car, I can because I'm Lil Tay.
Great, no concerns so far.
And it was extremely concerning at the time, even because of the exact reasons that you would think. But she was clearly being directed by her parents. She also had an older brother named Jason. To this date, she is 14 and he is 21 years old.
Okay.
So what ended up happening was in 2018, Lil Tay disappeared from the internet.
Okay.
And the only thing that was posted that year was an Instagram story that said, "Help me." We were told that Lil Tay's brother was now running Lil Tay's social media account, and that Lil Tay was in the middle of a custody battle between her parents. Lil Tay spoke about this with Daily Beast in 2018. She talked about how her dad was trying to sue her mom for money, and she was in a really tough spot. Then there were images that were put out for a GoFundMe of Lil Tay's face that looked battered, and her brother saying, Lil Tay needs help and please help Lil Tay. So all of this was kind of happening. The world just kind of let it go by, and then we haven't heard anything for years. The next thing that we hear was that this week, 2 days ago, on Lil Tay's Instagram page, which has had nothing populated since 2018, the statement was made. It's with a heavy heart that we share this devastating news of our beloved Claire, which is Lil Tay's real name. Sudden and tragic passing. We have no words to express the unbearable loss and indescribable pain. This post goes on to also share that they are grieving the loss of Lil Claire and Lil Tay and her brother.
Yeah.
Which was, they didn't really mention what happened. Then there was outlets that were releasing that there was a car accident. There were outlets that were releasing that there was a jet ski accident. Information was kind of seemingly all over the place. Insider reached out to her dad to comment what is happening here, and he said he couldn't confirm that they were dead. And then they reached out to Lil Tay's old manager, who also said, look at this situation cautiously. I cannot confirm whether they're dead or not.
Great.
Then a few hours later, an Instagram account popped up that claimed to be Lil Tay's brother, Jason, saying, to be clear, I'm not dead. I don't have access to the Lil Tay Instagram account anymore. My sister and I were winning our case. It was just a couple of days before we got it all back, all her social media, and come out about the truth. Me and Tay are not dead. We don't got access to the account. Our parents want us gone off the internet, but we will not go away. This is our new account for now. And so a lot of these outlets started trying to figure out, obviously, if Lil Tay was alive, if Lil Tay was dead, if Jason was alive, if Jason was dead, if that was just a fake scam account. That account got hundreds of thousands of followers very quickly. And then the post that of Lil Tay's passing was taken off of Lil Tay's social media. So where we are now is that apparently Lil Tay has said that she is not dead, claims that her social media was hacked. I don't know whether that means by her parents or not her parents, but this was a statement that Lil Tay's family provided to TMZ from Lil Tay, saying, I want to make it clear that my brother and I are safe and alive, but I'm completely heartbroken and struggling to even find the right words to say. It's been a very traumatizing 24 hours. All day yesterday, I was bombarded with endless heartbreaking and tearful phone calls from loved ones, all while trying to sort out this mess. Wow. She also says, my Instagram account was compromised by a third party and used to spread jarring misinformation and rumors regarding me, to the point that even my name was wrong. My legal name is Tay Tian, not Claire Hope. although we've heard from since she was 9 that it is clear hope. So I'm not sure what happened there. That's where we're at currently.
Mike Joyce in the chat says, sounds like she has awful parents. I feel so bad for her. That is what it sounds like.
DJ, do you now not want aliens to be here?
Listen, honestly, because it's like if they're not here and blowing us up, maybe they are here to help us and we could use it. So, I'm not against it. I will say, I want to float a theory that a feeling I've had for a while to you guys. And
About
I
Lil
feel
Tay?
like it pertains to Lil Tay.
Okay.
That I feel like, and you can't, just as a general rule, kids under the age of 16 shouldn't be allowed to use social media.
Thank you. They shouldn't even have a phone.
You know, is that too? It just feels like too much, man. It just feels like you open your kid up, and I'm saying this on the terms of none of us are parents, but if you were a parent raising a kid, like,
Yep.
sorry, you don't get to use social media at 16 because people might manipulate you. Maybe you will get famous, but then you all are on the internet. You know what people on the internet are like. Do you want your kids dealing with that before they're 16? You know what I
Wasn't
mean?
it like the CEO of Instagram forbade his children to use social media because he has the most information backing that it is a very destructive experience for minors, actually for everyone.
I love
studies.
that. I love that. Like, Instagram, we have all this information that shows how damaging it can be for adolescent people. What are you going to do about that? Oh, I'm not letting my kids use it. No, I'm talking about the company you run. What are you going to do about it?
Kids? Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely... Oh, go ahead, Maude.
I just think that until they're an adult and they can make their own decisions, there's quite a few, I think exploiting children. It's really dark as well, unless you have a really great understanding and grasp on the internet. There are a lot of mothers who are, doing accounts for their young daughter and they're not realizing that they're kind of providing material for the dark web.
Yeah.
And that, the majority of their followers are older single men and not understanding why their audience, she's not targeting sort of other mothers about parenting. The audience are men commenting hot, but they're well, I've got followers and it's making money, and you're like, what? It's dangerous. It's not worth it.
I think similar to the Spider-Verse conversation, I don't know that not allowing your kid to use social media for any of us, if you end up being a parent or whatever it is the solution, because it's the same thing when you have strict rules in your household and then they walk outside and then they're doing things behind your back. So while I'm with you, DJ, if all the people under 16 weren't able to use social, I do think that would be better for the world. But I don't know that not allowing your 15-year-old kid to use social, I think that might be worse. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not a parent, but I know that as a ex-teen, if my parents said you cannot do something, that you better believe that's the thing that I did and hid from them.
Yeah, that was not me. That was not me. Because that was not my relationship with because my parents were pretty good. They weren't the do this. Why? Because I told you so. It was do this. Why? Well, here are the reasons. We think this is better for you because of da 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 da. And it was oh, well, that's hard to argue with. Okay.
Yeah, my parents, they never, because we told you so, I don't think ever came out of their mouth. But
different strokes for different folks. Different. Yeah.
Yeah. And also as somebody who, DJ, I think you were protected in a great way, but being homeschooled, you're not dealing with the societal pressure every day necessarily of doing the cool thing.
Yeah.
And being with the kids and really just wanting to do what doesn't make you stand out like a sore thumb and just wanting to be like the people. Maybe you did. But I do think that this is a problem. I saw somebody post on TikTok the other day saying, what the question was what's your hottest take? And this person was my hottest take is that we should not have any child stars. If you are under 18, you should not be able to be in a movie, a television show, or anywhere. Our art will suffer, but hey, our kids will not. And this has clearly been an issue. And I was wow, Rox, what's your actual opinion on this? I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that. Like, I don't know that I agree or that's my hottest take, but if you were not allowed to be on camera in any way, but I do think it's such a fine line now, right? Like, social media is entertainment, and people have series on Instagram, on TikTok, on Snap. They do entire series. So it's like everything's so intertwined. I don't even know how we would regulate. Yeah.
I just don't see that there's a world where if anyone under even 16 being on camera or has a, their parents running an Instagram account creating content, I don't know how it's not exploitation.
Speaking of, in the chat, Leonard Kim says the word of the day seems to be exploitation. And I think this is one of those, like, like we're just talking about, like, different, people, including kids, are different. And so, and again, none of us are stressed. None of us are parents. But we're asking ourselves these questions of how we would do it and how we would handle it would be different, and how the individual child would respond to that would be different. Like, to your point, Roxy, like, on the one hand, talking about kids on camera, like, as somebody that is a director and a writer, and it's like, but what if a kid's in the script? Like, what am I going to do? But on the other hand, it is by definition child labor. That is literally what it is. That's not great. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, and I don't know. Like, I think the easy response will be, well, then you have to regulate it, right? I don't know that you do the best you can with regulation, but, like, you know what I mean? You
can't control how it's going to be perceived, though.
Yeah. And you're also, to Maude's point, like, stage moms, and I think that's kind of what we're talking around with situations like this on Instagram, is like the pathway to stage mom is now easier because of social media, and taking care of kids. I do find myself right now, find my brain drifting back to, like, I don't know, man, maybe if people were taken better care of and work and weren't struggling financially so much, and we had health care, maybe people would do less shitty things. Like, let's give it a shot. Let's try. Maybe if living in this country was less shitty, people would do less shitty things. Maybe. Just throwing it out there.
What's the basis of exploitation? Greed.
Yeah.
You're doing it to make money. It's so you can have money. Why do you need money? It all comes kind of back down to that. But it's like people are cutting corners because they need to make more money. Entertainment is only as good as the revenue and the shareholders are getting money from it. You know what I mean? So it's greed.
I feel like we drifted from Lil Tay. Is it just jury's still out? We don't know. We're going to find out. Stay tuned.
I'm like alarmed by the fact that that this could be taking place and we have no answers. This girl is 14 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm unclear. She's now said she's alive, but, like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the household, something is wrong. We've had pictures of her face all cut up and bleeding. It's been years of her and her brother claiming abuse, and the fact that she was in the middle of this custody battle and spoke about it publicly. But it takes this for us as a society to be like, should we look into this? And it's like, you made the reference, DJ, to Lil Dicky, and I totally. Completely.
Yeah, so I apologize for that. There was an episode of the season Lil Dicky where the people thought he died. They're clearly not the same situation. I apologize.
He's getting more famous and more streams on it, so he doesn't come out and say he's alive.
Yeah.
And completely, DJ, though. I think that, unfortunately, what is this a lesson in with this Lil Tay situation? How are people going to take this? I don't know whether her parents did this, whether it really was a hack, but we know that this girl who's been screaming for our attention since she was 9 years old, who got none, finally claimed there was a claim that this girl was dead. And that's finally the way that we're going to look into this as a society.
Mm-hmm.
What is the lesson there? I mean, that's just, I think it's awful all around.
Speaking of what is the lesson, I think Tory Lanez is sentenced to 10 years after shooting Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah, this is something that I am, like, absolutely horrified about as well, because I try really hard not to get in fights with people on the internet that clearly are morons. Yeah. But for anybody who doesn't know, in 2020, Tory Lanez shot Meg Thee Stallion as she was exiting a vehicle. He shot her in the foot. She went to the hospital. There are hospital records of this. And he was just on trial. He was convicted and sentenced to 10 years. And I have no other word for them. The bros behind Tory Lanez are like, he didn't do this. Drake says he didn't do this. Tory says he didn't do this. And they're still calling this the alleged shooting, even though he was convicted and sentenced to 10 years. And I got
so innocent until proven guilty doesn't even stand because he's been proven guilty. But it's like, alternative facts. Yeah.
It's just unbelievable that the internet is still riding for him and like coming to find me on my show and accusing me of spreading horrible lies about him when he is going to jail because he was convicted
felon.
Right. And it's just like, that's where we're at in the world right now. Sometimes when I have interactions with people and I'm like, wow, I just don't get what they're saying. And then I'm like, oh, there are people out there that believe that this man who was convicted of shooting her, who did shoot her, there's footage, there is photos, there are hospital records, there is a conviction. They just believe he's innocent because they believe he's innocent. And that's who we're talking to every day on the internet. So just absolutely wild. I feel so relieved that he is going to prison because you should not be allowed to shoot another person who's trying to leave a situation and get away with that scot-free. That's not how the world works. And she clearly felt like she was in a dangerous situation. She exited that situation and she got shot for doing so. Not okay. You have to go to prison. A lot of people think that it's not long enough. I feel like that's a fair assessment, but at least this person is going to prison for what he did, not allegedly, for what he was convicted of doing. I know I brought this up to you, DJ, years ago on the show when the shooting happened. So it took 3 years and a month for this to come full circle, and that's what's happening.
Whoa.
There we go. Not long enough. 10 years is a pretty long time. Again, I'm not pro. I'm pro consequences for doing fucked up things. Generally,
it's because they believe not serve 4.5 of it. DJ, I think that's why people are saying it's not that long. It's not mine to decide.
Exactly. I'm not. Listen. All I can judgment call on pro consequences for doing shitty things.
Right.
I don't know
it just
these are the consequences I would root for, but yes, consequences and hopefully reform. That pro that and when you mentioned it, I was pulling assets. I looked up Tory Lanez. I'm like, I don't want to pull up a picture of Tory Lanez. I want to pull up a picture of Megan Thee Stallion. That's what I want to pull a picture of.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
I just think that like the sad part about this is it just sends another message to Black women that even when you try to do the right thing and even when you have been wronged, people are still willing to not believe you or support anyone else, you know? And I just don't think that we need more of in this world.
Yeah.
100% that, Maude, because like what more proof can there be? And people still are riding for him. And it's just including Drake. Including mega stars who Drake wrote on his album in his lyrics that Meg Thee Stallion was lying about being shot. And it's like, I've been a Drake fan for my whole life. And then I was like, I can't respect that. Like you're adding to, you think it's just a line in the song. Like you said, Maude, it's horrible the way that we're treating Black women in this country. We know that's not a secret anymore. And the fact that there's still people on the internet, but allegedly, what would it take for you to believe her?
Yeah. Apologies to women in America. We're hard on you.
Well, I think, Black women.
Women in general, people in color in general, Black women specifically.
Yeah, need the most love.
You're here in this country, and we are the way we are here. I apologize. Let's transition to ads. Yay! Oh my God, we're back, and listen, lighter. Let's talk about books. Maude, you've been doing a book club for a minute. Tell us about what your book club. What are you guys talking about?
So my book club, it kind of transitioned from Geek Bomb last year. I had a 10-year run with Geek Bomb, which was a lot of fun. But I really wanted to focus on the thing that I loved the most, and that's reading. And I have like this agenda where I do want to encourage people to read more books. And so the book club launched beginning of the year. We cover. It's supposed to be a book a month, nice and easy, you know, to have accountability. We choose a book. The community votes on the book. We've basically got the entire year mapped out. We're already mapping out 2024 with the book. And then as a community, we all read it together. And then twice that month, we'll check in. We'll talk about the first half of the book and then the rest of the book. And more often than not, I will have the author on to discuss the book as well. It's just something that I adore. My whole mantra with my book club is that we all read the same words, but we all hear a different story. And I think by sharing what you're getting from this book with different altering perspectives is so amazing. So in the book club, like plus community, the youngest is 23, the oldest is 73. Wow. So to have such a wide spectrum of different perspectives is just so wonderful to learn. So that's my book club.
I love it.
I joked to DJ about this when the strike started, but I said something along the lines of like, Maude made the right pivot at the right time, huh? I know that's a bizarre thing to say, but do you ever kind of think like the way that everything happened, I'm sure it must have been really scary for you to really lean into books, because you must have, I would have thought like, is this a viable thing to do? This is also like still your livelihood. This is your world.
And no one wants to read anymore. So I'm like,
Right. But then it seems like you have cultivated like the most amazing community, and at a time in which it seems like books are a really great alternative form of entertainment, I guess, and all of the things that people are striking against. It has nothing to do with what you're doing right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it
was
that
handy.
You've been thinking about like, okay, like maybe you should just follow the dreams that you want to do, because you never know what the universe is going to do anyway, and you would have been SOL if you hadn't made that pivot.
Yeah. You know, I just think I did follow what I loved, and it just so happened that, you know, books are a little bit untouchable because it does fly so under the radar, really. I'm glad you mentioned like the community part of it. A big part about talking about video games and film and television is that the community is very, very different to a book community. And I've found that when I've kind of like shirked a lot of the deep discussions on Marvel or DC or, you know, the hardcore video games, I've been met with a incredibly wonderful, non-confrontational, delightful community. And to connect over books is such a wholesome experience a lot of the time. Like the biggest disagreement that you can have is sort of like, oh, this fictional character, which you would think could apply to film and television, but it just doesn't at all. It doesn't at all. But I just think that though, like I personally have had such a positive experience reading books and sharing about books. Like I was blogging about books back in 2009 when I like started going on my big vampire craze, and I had no one to talk to about it. So I turned to
what was going on in 2009 that made you into vampires?
Couldn't tell you.
Who knows? It's a mystery.
Top of my head, yeah. Shadow Hunters. Yeah. No, I went hard into Twilight. I was like, wee! And then watching it back, you're like, oh my God, they're so problematic.
I've never seen it.
Oh my God, they're actually kind of like incredible to cringe watch these days. I was going to do like a whole dissertation about how we brainwashed and convinced an entire generation to be like team werewolf or team vampire, when in essence, if you break it down, your team vampire is the most controlling, emotionally abusive person, and then your team werewolf is not taking no for an answer. And so like they're two, like one's no consent and one's controlling abusive relationship. And you're just like, and we worshipped and wanted this. So anyway, it's actually interesting rewatching it because you're just like, ugh.
I wonder if watching it for the first time, I'll be like, why did they like?
Yeah. I would actually, it would be an incredible watch party, Roxy, if you wanted to do that. Like it would be.
I do think I haven't watched them. I listened to film podcasts, and they did a whole series on the Twilight movies, and it was very fascinating. But I do wonder how much we don't need to fucking dive down the Twilight hole, but I do wonder, like, fantasy, you know what I mean? You can fantasize about anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love, for example, fucking love the John Wick movies. I don't necessarily support gun cults running around. You know what I mean? Like, it's fantasies are fantasies. I don't know that, it's just as long as you communicate to people. Like, this is fantasy. This is not necessarily how you should treat other humans, but you can visit here for a little bit. Not having watched it, I don't know that I could make that argument, but it was just one of those, like, I don't know.
You could like extrapolate that the themes of that is loyalty.
Yeah, and it's just in general, I don't know that maybe we should be getting our relationship advice from the Mormons. I don't, you know what I mean? Just in general, I don't know that one size might not fit all. Is all I'm saying.
Are they Mormons in the movie?
The writer is very Mormon, and one presumes that fed into her worldview.
Do they come from books?
Yeah, I worked in Barnes and Noble when Twilight was huge, it was one of the, it was a
phenomenon.
It was the closest I think you got. And Maude, you might be able to add clarity to this, but if working in a bookstore was the closest you got to Harry Potter as far as like saturation, and interest. It was like Harry Potter, Twilight, Hunger Games, and then every other thing that wanted to be Harry Potter, Twilight, and Hunger Games.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Huge.
I missed it all.
Yeah, you missed it all. But don't worry, you can go back.
But you're into them now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm not in. So this is, I guess, Maude, this is my weirdly phrased question. Is this okay? I'm not into fiction books. No. Yes.
Yes.
I'm
that's what
only
you said. Yeah.
Yes. I'm only into like biographies and self-help, and I just can't figure out. Actually, DJ, funny enough, I messaged Maude about this person that I had matched with on an app, and they were big into books, and I was like, I don't read, and they were like, this is not going to work because it's like not a good look for me. That I think of myself, despite not having words on this show today, as a very smart woman who loves to learn about the world and hear stories. So the fact that I don't read is embarrassing. Mm-hmm. It's like not a good thing about me. But
I would argue you've only got so many hours in a day and they are occupied.
Mm-hmm.
They are, but you make time for things that matter to you. And I somehow make time to read all of Twitter every day. And that's something that I don't want to effing do anymore. Like, why do I know... Going back to today's episode, why do I know every single thing about the Lil Tay case? Is my life better for that? Like, why am I deep diving into these intense stories at 3 a.m. that take until 5 a.m. instead of reading a book? But I can get my head around reading books that are nonfiction, but I can't seem to read a fiction book instead of watching a movie or a show.
Yeah, that's your form of escapism. I think you're trying to fit a circle into a square. It scratches that itch. But when you would use escapism into these characters because you resonate more with fiction in movies, storytelling, in that medium, you seek information through words. So you would rather learn through biographies and self-help because that's the way that you can retrieve that information. But you're less likely to probably watch a documentary. But
that's actually true.
There you go.
And I when I watch documentaries, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should be doing this more often. But that is true. I read about things that are happening and I watch things that are not.
Yes. Yeah. Whereas I
do analyze me, Maude. Why do I do that?
No, it's just a preferred way to absorb information. Yeah. And I think that, a lot of people are like, I don't read. And it's like, if they don't want to, I'm not going to convince them. If they don't want to do it. But I have found more and more people when taking a chance with it. My editor for Maude's book club, she's a film and television critic. So she watched all film and television, but it almost became work. And then when I encouraged her to read, we set a reading goal. And her goal was 10 books for the year. So it wasn't even a book a month, It was like, I want to try to read. Maybe it was even 7. It was something sort of like really manageable. And she kind of used enjoying film and television. So she read Daisy Jones and the Six. And the fact that she got so much more from the book than the show offered, she was like, wow, it increased and enhanced my experience of film and television by reading. And then it was just a slippery slope. She found that she could enjoy reading more than she could watch movies and television because she watched it with a critical eye, but she read for fun.
Yeah.
And because she could differentiate that, she's now like doubled her book count, and it's only August. And so like that is a personal success story that I've had about changing and encouraging someone to read and it being incredibly beneficial for them. I basically stacked habits, and that's how I read so much. I've just finished my 57th book for the year. I'm going to try for 90. But because
what's the math there? How is that? That's definitely more than a book a week. What is that? 2 books a week?
Yeah, around that. It's just shy of 2 books a week. And I'm 4 ahead of schedule. So I have been doing more than that.
That's wild.
That's because that's what you want to do, or is that because you run the book club?
I have I found my groove. So I recognized that I really struggled to sit down and read a book because my brain wouldn't let me. My brain would constantly, because we are in this swipe, quick stimulation mindset, I lost the ability to read. I used to read every single night before bed, and I would spend like hours on the weekend reading. I lost that with the introduction of mobile phones. So instead of going to bed, I would be on my phone. And so I realized that with the introduction of audiobooks, I could multitask. So it was great for like, the Roxys of the world where it's like I am booked up and I'm doing so many things. But if you're driving around town to 7 different locations and you're listening to a book while you're driving, you're stab at hacking. You are habit stacking. So when I walk my dog for an hour every morning, I'm listening to a book. When I'm in the car, I'm listening to a book. And now instead of trying to read before I go to bed, I will listen to a book. And I found that by listening instead of reading, and some people will argue that you actually can't retain as much listening than you can reading. It's something that I had to learn to do because I did find it really hard to sort of switch off and focus while multitasking. But I've doubled, tripled, quadrupled the amount that I can consume by doing that. But it's just I found the thing that worked for me.
Though? Or it's all audiobooks for you?
I do read still because I have found that, because I've listened to a book for book club, and this is one of them. I listened to this book and then I read it, and I make tabs. So like with different parts in it, I do retain things differently. And I have noticed that like once I've listened to it and then I read it, I picked up things that I've missed. So I do believe that reading, if you can get in the zone, is phenomenal. And for me, it'll take about 5 minutes of like reading the same paragraph 4 times, and all of a sudden I'm locked in and I've read 7 chapters and I haven't even come up for breath. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. We got some questions from the Discord. Jake Hefner, I've been on a memoir and autobiography kick lately. Latest ones being Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey and Crash Test Girl by Carrie Byron. Any memoir or autobiography recommends? Yes.
I'm Glad My Mom Is Dead by Jeanette McCurdy. It has been in the top 10 best-selling list this entire year.
Yeah, my wife's been reading it as well.
I want to read that. I hear it's really good.
Roxy, you would love it. You would absolutely love it. I think it was interesting for me because I remember interviewing Jeanette McCurdy in America in 2008 while they were doing iCarly, and I was hosting Nickelodeon in Australia. And it was just having a firsthand experience of what she was like, and then reading what was going on was really such it was a mind melt, really. And it really ties into what we've been talking about child exploitation. This was a show mum who was abusive to Jeanette, and because she knew nothing else, she openly accepted it. And then it wasn't until she became an adult and sought outside help that she was told that's not normal. That's actually incredibly not cool. And she's been able to kind of process and grieve her childhood now that her mum's dead.
Yeah.
So it's a really good read.
Living in this town, we probably all had that experience where somebody was like, "Yeah, my parents did this," and you're like, "Excuse me, time out. What are you talking about?" Rewind a second. Let's revisit that. Cool. Jake Hefner again. Also, since we all know, and see, this is the kind of the joke question, I guess. Also, since we all know that what a horror fan Maude is Any favorite horror book suggestions? I'm in the middle of Let the Right One In. I didn't read the book, but that's a great movie. And while I'm digging it, it also makes me feel really uneasy.
Oh
Like
yeah.
for your bookshelf.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's actually one of my little mild superpowers that I have is that every time someone's like, have you read this? I go, here it is. Or if I have a recommendation, I can pull from my bookshelf. I have read horror.
Yeah.
I did Nerdist's book club for, I think, 7 years. And every October, it's spooky season.
Yeah.
And we've locked in for this year. We're going to be covering Stephen King's Fairy Tale because it's not only it's a horror author that kind of has dabbled in fantasy, and I like fantasy, so this is a good entry point. I have read The Shining by Stephen King, and I think it's brilliant. And again, because Kubrick took on the movie, you're like, what is the source material? So it's like really fascinating to read the book about the movie that you've seen. That book it just sits with you. I remember the first book we ever did for Notice Book Club back in 2016 was The Haunting of Hill House. Now, the television show has nothing on the book. It was like they share the same name, and that's almost it. They are very, very different. I remember saying stupidly, how can you be scared by a book? They're just words.
Yeah.
This book scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Slammed it through the book. It's so well done. But The Haunting of Hill House was written by Shirley Jackson in the 50s.
Yeah.
And she has done a really good job of sort of bringing the horror genre to life. I think it was like Haunted Mansion or The Haunting of Hill House. There was like an initial version of it with Catherine Zeta-Jones in like the 2000 somethings.
That sounds right.
That's more what this book is like. So I recommend that book as well, but I can't recommend too many because I haven't read a lot of horror. But do not underestimate horror books. They can get you.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of Stephen King, I remember and speaking of audiobooks, I don't know that I would, because it's such a dense book. I listened to Stephen King's The Stand. And it's really fucking good. It's really good. It's a really good book.
Does he read his own stuff, DJ?
See, oh no, it would not, at least not that. He didn't narrate that.
He didn't narrate that.
Yeah. So I don't know about other stuff, but and I haven't checked out the Apple Plus show. I heard mixed things about it, but I know the book, real good. Leonard Kim, are you someone who tries to preserve the pristine condition of your books, or do you have a zero care and not care about the wear and the tear?
I've moved countries, so I've had to really detach from material things.
Yeah.
Everything is temporary. If I want to move again, I got to get rid of all of this, which is again why I love like the e-readers, Kindles, audiobooks. It's a digital file that you can take with you.
Yeah.
Is there something beautiful about your limited edition sort of like copies of books? Yes, absolutely. That's just mainly for display purposes only. The Dune book I've got is, look at this one. The answer to the question is no.
Yeah. There's no. What about you, Roxy? Are you one of those like you preserve the spine? You like try and like keep it all nice?
Oh my God, no, just absolutely not. I mean, I often use my coffee book tables as coasters, so like where I'm at.
No disrespect to people that enjoy the pristine. I think that more power to. That's the June copy, by the way.
That's great. I like what you're doing there, because I do like the tactile. Having worked in a bookstore, there's the specific smell like real books have and everything. But there is something incredibly convenient. I'm reading right now, City Primeval by Elmore Leonard on Kindle. And it's just easy. Like, it's just so easy. And also the idea, as somebody that's been collecting comics for not a short amount of time, space is a thing. You know what I mean? And so I have mixed feelings on it. But for a long time, I did try, like, you don't try to crack the spine or whatever. And it's like, I don't know, man, read stuff, whatever. Like, it's a $5 Robert Ludlum I got from whatever. Just fucking who gives a shit? You know what I mean?
Can I show you something? Can I show you something that I am doing to my physical books, though?
Yes.
So my friends for my birthday got me a stamp. This is from the Library of Maude Garrett. And you get the ink pad and you get it all good, and
Yeah.
then in the new book, you open it up to the page,
Yeah.
and
Boom.
so I get to put these in my physical copies of books. So even if I ever do give them away, there's like a beautiful ownership quality that this was once in my library, and I really, really dig that.
Yeah.
Do you give books away a lot?
I really love the notions of the little free libraries. So people outside their home can put up this like cute little library, letterboxy type sort of thing, a display case, and you can drop off books that you no longer need, but you can also pick up books. And I've picked up a couple of books from around my neighborhood, which have been really good finds for me. And it also means that like as soon as things get a little bit full, or if I'm done with the book, I can deposit them off. So that's a really cool incentive.
Do you have a library card?
I do. And in America, if you have a library card, you can get access to this app called Libby, which is an online library. So instead of having to purchase audiobooks or e-Kindle books, you can borrow them. So you'll be given them for 3 weeks and then it gets taken back again. But it's completely free. And the access and the quality of stuff and the influx of books is really, really great. If the book's popular, you just have to wait a little bit to get the copy. But that's a fantastic entry level for anyone that's looking to not spend a cent, but have access to a lot of different books and audiobooks.
So if the book is popular, you have to wait for the audiobook as well?
Yeah. So they'll have like 52 copies of the audiobook, but then there's like a wait list of like 97 people. And so you might have to wait a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, Maude, do you have recommendations for Roxy and I? A book Roxy should be reading, a book I should be reading?
Yes. Okay, great. Okay. I can do this for sure. DJ Wooldridge, you are very much into intelligent world building with a very set system of like classism or like, you know, how a world will work, and incredibly rich and compelling character depth. I'm going to recommend a series that we just went through every other month with Maude's Book Club, and it's the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown.
I'll leave a note for myself.
It's kind of like a space opera fantasy, but it's in the sci-fi genre. You are looking at like a revolution, a revolt of like a caste system where the golds are like the be all end all, the leaders, they're smart, they're your upper class, and they have reign over every other caste system beneath them. The first book starts off a little bit like Hunger Games. It's like an entry level into the academy, where you build sort of like survival skill sets, but you've kind of got like an undercover operation that's happening in there, which is really well done. And then as soon as you've read that first book, you're like, whoa, this was amazing. And it's like, buckle up, sunshine. It's actually going to take it to a whole new dimension, and it gets better and better. You are going to throw a book at some stage. But the trilogy for the first one, I recommend completely, and I know you're going to love it.
Red
Rising, and you're going to want to pick my brain about it after, because you're going to have like, what about this? Roxy, since you are into more self-help and development, last time I asked you to read Atomic Habits, so I'm still going to push you on that one, because I think with your,
I'm going to write it down.
I mean, it's when I said I was habit stacking, that's an Atomic Habits technique where it's like, if you need to do a bunch of things, put them all together so it's an easier thing to maintain every single day. But I know that you're going to love Atomic Habits.
Cool.
As far as, do you want to go outside your wheelhouse? Do you want me to recommend fiction?
No.
Or do we want?
No.
Okay.
Scary.
Have you read Brene Brown's books yet?
No, I haven't. I feel like that's got to be so up my alley.
It is 100%. I want you to read a book called The Power of Vulnerability.
Okay.
By Brene Brown. Start there, and then you can go into Dare to Lead. There's like a bunch of different sort of techniques that she has. I think that you are going to feel empowered by this woman who is an incredible speaker, who, since you're listening to it, she narrates it.
Oh, I love that.
And she's a really great speaker, and she's like very, very real with it all. But you're going to be listening to this being like, whoa. Hold on. There's another one that I've just read this year, and I actually found it to be a little bit better than how Vulnerability, The Power of Vulnerability, because she recorded her sort of 6-part seminar, which I don't think is a good entry point. So instead, The Gifts of Imperfection.
Wait, that's better to read than The Power of Vulnerability?
Yeah. Start with The Gifts of Imperfection. I think or Daring Greatly. Daring Greatly is good too. Daring Greatly is actually great. Daring Greatly as well.
Yeah.
You'll start with one and then you'll be like, oh, I've read them all. I've read them all.
We'll have to report back. And in the chat,
I have to know from Maude, did you ever read a book called Man's Search for Meaning?
Oh, was it Viktor Frankl?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I'm reading right now.
Okay, so I wouldn't have gotten you to start there. The first half of that book is the hardest book you will ever listen to.
It's so unbelievable, though.
The second half of that book is going to be revolutionary for you.
I have just hit his logo theory, so I'm out of the camps. Thank goodness, because I just couldn't spend more time there.
So this is a story
thing I've ever said, but because I've been learning all about my family's history, which is very difficult to learn about because it's very taboo and you're not supposed to ask about it, talk about it. But I've been very interested in reading survivors' books because of that, and this is just like blowing my. I think he's just unbelievable. In his therapy methods, I'm just very interested in it.
Yeah, finding purpose to everything. So basically, this is a psychiatrist who was Jewish, and he was put into the camps, and he documents basically what the mind does when you are in these reduced human states. Is a way to say it. And it's what he discovered in there is like, even though everyone was broken, like you were made to be broken, there were some people that held on to hope. And he kind of was like, what is it when you're dissecting your dissertation? Like he's studying the human mind in these conditions, and he survived. And then from that, he kind of took what he learned from the most extreme cases of being broken and has applied it to a technique that he has coined, which is like, man's search for meaning. So it's like, what is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of doing things? And it's, I think, such a blessing that this brilliant brain was able to go through the worst thing imaginable that should have been unsurvivable, and has not only collated information and was able to absorb this sort of information in these conditions, but has gone on to then be able to help millions of other people with an understanding of the brain. It is a very hard read. It is really hard to go through and to be reminded of the cruelty of person, of like what people are capable of doing. But it's also a fascinating look into how to survive and thrive from that. But that is, wow, what a book, Roxy. That's a lot.
He said, the most recent thing he said that I wrote down, I take notes when I listen to audiobooks. Like I'll think about the time and then I'll go back and write
I did
down.
too, actually. Yeah.
And he said, no one has the right to do wrong, not even if wrong has been done to them. Talking about like people afterwards who had felt like they had suffered so much and then they are being horrible to other people because what they have been through. And I was like, that's true. No one has the right to do wrong, no matter what's been done to them. It was it's so good. I think that the book is just like, gives you unbelievable perspective. I'm so interested in him and his life. I wish he was still around for me to reach out to him to interview, because I would talk about people that just would be an honor to talk to. Incredible. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, DJ.
No,
great book.
Contribute.
I actually think it's interesting. I would have recommended that in about 5 books' time, but the fact that you've jumped into that on your own, like, you're crushing it.
Oh, now I'm experienced.
Good to go. You're good to go.
Everything else will be a walk in the park.
Maude, before we go, remind everybody once again where they can find your book club and maybe what you guys are covering right now.
Sure thing. We are on all social medias, Maude's Book Club. We have a launched website, Maude's Book Club. We have merchandise, Maude's Book Club. Our slogan, let's read more books. I do streams via Twitch. Check out the Discord, which is discord.gg/Maude Garrett for the schedules for that. This month, for the first time ever, I've encouraged people to read 2 books, and it's into a series called Dungeon Crawler Carl. And this is a genre called game lit RPG. So it's for all the gamers and D&D players that have like really understood like stat building and like class and race and, you know, going into sort of all these dungeons. It's a written book that is so funny. This is a laugh out loud kind of book. And I think it's incredibly well written. It's by Matt Dinnerman. So we've just finished book 1. We're going into book 2. If that's something that sounds like it's right up your alley, join along, because I will be interviewing Matt Dinnerman on August 30th, which is the last Wednesday of this month at 5 p.m. PT, to talk about this series that I can't shut up about, because I think it's one of the best things I've written in a while. And the community have basically given it a 4.5 and 5 out of 5. So it's a good one.
Hell yeah. Again, there will be links in the description. Please go check that out. Thank you, Maude, for joining us. You can find Roxy at Roxy Stryer. You can find me at DJ Talks Trash. You can follow this show everywhere that matters at Only Stupid Answers, but on Twitter /X
You got the
/thread.
vowels from stupid.
And we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.